Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I've got some really great tips for you on this episode of Stamp School. I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful custom envelope using no fancy templates or tools. I'm going to show you how to get the look of faux layers, get the look of layered pattern paper on your cards, but you know, with just one layer of white cardstock. And we're going to do a little bit more with our ink pads. The stamps we're using are gorgeous, and they're by www.artneco.com. They're one of my favorite stamp companies. They have a gorgeous assortment of Asian themed rubber stamps, papers, trinkets, and washi tapes, lots of wonderful things. And they are a very nice company, nice people to deal with. And they're giving you guys a discount of 10% if you mention the Frugal Crafter when you order, or free shipping on orders over 50, whichever is more. You can get the 10% off no matter how much you spend, but if you do spend more than 50, you can get free shipping if that's a better deal than the 10% off. I'll put all the details in the video description so you can check it out, and don't forget to tell them Lindsay sent you so you can get that deal. Alright, so what we're going to do today is work on a half sheet of white cardstock. Here I've got one right here already scored, and then what we're going to do is make a template. So a template or a mask, it's just basically a piece of torn paper. That's what we're going to use today. So I'm just going to tear this piece right down the middle. You could be a little rougher with your tear if you want to have a more jagged tear. This one tore pretty smoothly, and that's what I'm gonna use. And we're gonna start by stamping our focal image. And I've got this pretty peacock, and I'm gonna use different shades of purples and blues and greens. And what I'm doing first is putting down my lighter shades. So I've got my lighter greens, my lighter blues, my light lavender color there. And then I'm going to go in with some darker colors. So I'm working light to dark, and I'm trying to only overlap like the colors that kind of are on top of their similar colors, so I don't end up contaminating my ink. So I want to keep them nice and fresh. A little bit more of that dark blue maybe in the plumage there and on the feet. And then before I stamp, what I want to do is breathe on the stamp to moisten up the ink. There, we'll put that hot air to good use, right guys? Alright, and then I'm going to stamp this in the center of my card towards the top. Now this is a great technique for doing birthday cards, thank you cards, invitations. Anytime you want to make a lot of cards and not use up a ton of supplies, we're using that same white cardstock that I told you to get during the first Stamp School video, because I believe that white cardstock and ink is your most versatile supplies. And they're the ones that are not going to go out of style. They're the things that you're going to reach for again and again, and you can do so much with it. So I've given this stamp about 20 seconds to transfer, for the ink to transfer from the stamp onto the paper, and we have a pretty good image there. And then what I want to do is actually make myself a little palette with my with this like extra clear block that I have and some of my ink pads. So to do that, all I do is just smush my ink onto the palette there, and it makes a nice little watercolor palette for me. So if you don't have the markers and you want to do some coloring, this is an excellent way to do that. Now I'm going to use a water brush today. You could use a blending pen if that's what you have. It doesn't matter. In fact, I'm going to set my palette on that white piece of paper so you can see my colors there. So like this is super light. So I'm going to pick up some of this really light purple, and I think I still need to add a little bit of dark to it. And then what I'm going to do is just add some of that to my feathers, and it's going to be really splotchy at first. It will even out a little bit as we go. I think I want overall more purple down here, and I think I'll fade it and have more blue at the top. And this does not have to look just like any other peacocks. It can be your own interpretation. And this is just cardstock, so it's not going to blend that great, so don't worry about that. We're not using watercolor paper. We're using just plain inexpensive cardstock. To clean your brush, your water brush, squeeze it, let some of that water out. I kind of just wipe off a little bit too so I don't have too much. And then I'm going to grab some of that green. I think I want it darker and closer to the body, so I'm turning my paper right around, and it will kind of feed out more water as it goes, and that gives me a natural shadow. And some people aren't going to like this technique too much because it is a little less precise than like using the markers and a blender pen, but I like it. It's completely up to you though. You do whatever you like, but I do recommend you try it. Okay. So I try to move pretty quickly once I set the ink down, because once you set the ink down, it kind of wants to grab the paper when you're just using regular cardstock. And remember, we're just using the basic stuff here. There we go. Okay, and then if you want a shadow, what I think I'll do, if I want to make a shadow, I would just mix some of the purple and some of that green, because it will kind of gray each other down. And I'll use that for the shadow, and I'll just put that just underneath the bird. You don't have to do that. I didn't do it in my other one. I'll let you compare them and see which one you like better. But I felt like it just needed something to ground the bird there, because it looks like it's about to take off. I'm not even sure if peacocks can fly, so we'll just have him standing on the ground with a little inspiration in his wings. Okay, so now we've got our ripped up piece of paper. I'm going to lay that right over my bird, so it's kind of going to protect it a little bit there. And then I'm going to use a brush. This is a color duster, but you can use a makeup sponge. You could use a like a shaving brush. You could use a big chunky kids paintbrush. They're about the same. They have the head about the same size. That would work. Whatever you have. And I'm just going to swipe some ink. These aren't very expensive. I think you can find them. Joann's, I believe, online has them. I got these at a stamp show. They're just a stipple brush. This is the Color Dusters brand. Color Dusters by Judy Kinn's brand, but any sort of fairly stiff, long bristled round brush like that is going to work. So I've got a little layer of this lavender ink, and now I'm going to go in with some of the darker purple just to give it a little bit. This is grape jelly colored ink, just to give it a little bit of more dimension. Now what we're going to do is a little tone-on-tone stamping. So I've got some pretty little dragonflies that I'm going to stamp here. And they're pretty, but they're very plain. And they really wouldn't be something I would stamp on its own to be like the focal point of a card. And sometimes, like when you get sets, I want to show you this. This is how I store a lot of my stamps in these page protectors. A lot of times you get these little medallions and little little accents when you order a set of stamps or plate of stamps. And then you're kind of like, well, that's pretty, but what am I going to do with it? This is what you're going to do with it, guys. So file this technique away. You will find it to be very useful, I think, for using those little bitty stamps that kind of come with your larger stamp sets. Alright, so I'm inking up this little dragonfly here, and I'm going to stamp. I always stamp my biggest. If I'm stamping a couple images, I always stamp my biggest first. Then I'm going to go with my medium size. Now on the other one, I actually stamped them right on top of each other with the lighter and the darker ink, and I'm not sure if I like that. I did that because I didn't think the lighter ink showed up that well. So I'm just going to kind of see if I like that better than I like this. So we're going to compare and contrast at the end, and I'd rather show you a couple different versions so you can kind of decide what you want to do. I'm going to put him right off the edge. That's another tip. Let your images go right off the edge, because that will that'll give you more scale. It'll make it look a lot more natural. It'll make it look like you just took a piece of pattern paper and you chopped it down to go on your card. And we're trying to give the impression of faux layers here, so that's what we want. Put that one in like that. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is slide this paper up just a little bit. So, because you know when you tear paper, I think you can probably see. Let me tear this, and you can kind of see. When you tear a piece of pattern paper, you get that little white edge. That's kind of what we're going to have, what we're going to make here. So I'm going to grab my purple brush again. I probably don't even need to add any ink to it. And I'm just going to go in and add some color, and it doesn't look like you're adding any color at first because it's also going on top of what you've already done. So I like to peek and see what I've got before I decide that I need to add more ink. I try to keep it very subtle. Alright, so see, now we have that faux edge right there. I think that's pretty. Now if you feel this looks kind of pretty, but if you want to have this soft green halo around it, what you want to do is just take your green ink, one of the greens you already used. You know, I always like to keep my ink pads right out, because I know that if I go back for one of those colors, I'll get something I already used instead of something new. And I'm going to grab this green, and I'm just going to dust right around the edges. Now you could replace the opposite side of your mask over that if you're afraid you're going to get it into the bottom. I'm not too worried about that, so I'm just going to go ahead and go like that. Now, I have another tip for you. So I'm full of tips today, guys. I told you. This is a Jenga block, you know, the kids' toy Jenga. I took these happy birthday and thanks and just for you stamps, and I put them here on the Jenga block. So then I have them ready to go. I don't have to mount them. I don't have to do anything. They're just ready to go all the time. And I think I'm going to stamp thanks right here in this little area, or maybe right over there. I'm not sure. I didn't leave as much space on this one. I think I'll put it right over here. And I think this time, I think I'll do it in green. I did the other one in purple, so I think I'll try green and see how that looks. I'm going to bring the ink pad to the stamp. Hopefully it's dark enough to show up. There we go, and I'm going to press it. And the way I mounted mine right in the center, so you just have to be aware of where you put it on the block, because you can't see through it. And I'm going to press it straight down like that. And I did want to tell you the glue that I used to adhere the rubber to the block, and you'll have to stamp if you want to have an index on the opposite side. You'll have to stamp it first, you know, with your rubber raw. But the glue that works really good for gluing the rubber to the wood is rubber cement, and what you want to do is put a layer of rubber cement on the wood block and a layer of rubber cement on the back of your stamp. Let them set up until they're dry and then press them together, and that's how you're going to get a really good bond. And it's just, you know, Elmer's rubber cement. You can peel it off later. It's not going to come off accidentally, but you can remove the stamp later if you want to. Now I just triple mounted these, but you know, you could do one block per stamp. That's completely fine, and you may prefer to actually have yours mounted right to the edge so you can see where sentiment's going to stop or start. So that's completely up to you. I do think it's a great tip because I like to have my sentiments mounted. I like to just grab them and go, but that's again completely up to you. Okay, so my tip for making the envelope, this tip I have to give credit to my friend Christine. I do have a lot of friends named Christine, but this is Christine from France who lives in Panama, so I just wanted her to know that I am totally giving her props for this, and I did ask her permission before because I've shared this tip before. So what you want to do when you want to make a custom envelope but you don't have a template is you measure your card from corner to corner. Okay, so if I measure, I'm going to use inches but you can use, it doesn't matter what you measure it with. I'm going to use inches. So this is 7 inches. Okay, so you take that measurement, 7 inches, add 1 inch. Okay, so that gives us 8 inches. So then you cut your paper to 8-inch square. All right, that's what I did here. Now I'm using pattern paper. You can make this so that the pattern's on the inside so you can write an address on it. So let's do that because that's probably a little more useful if you're mailing your card. And this is a nice flat 1-layer card, so it's perfect to mail. Okay, you are going to put your card centered in the middle of this, and you have your paper like a diamond. Okay, and then you are going to fold in the edges. Now if you want to give it a little wiggle room, I slide this over a little bit and I fold it, and then I'll slide it back over a smidgen and I'll fold the other side, and that will give me like a little bit of wiggle room. Not that important with a flat card like this, but if you had any embellishments on it, it would you'd really want to have that little extra wiggle room. Now on the bottom you're going to fold this up, okay, and the top you're going to fold down. Now you can just go like this, and by the way, you could use magazines, any wrapping paper, anything you have for your envelopes. You don't have to have patterned scrapbook paper. So a couple cuts that I like to make, I like to cut out the corners on the top part because it makes it easier to put your cards in and out, and it also makes it look professional. So see, I'm just cutting out these notches. And honestly, it's like, it's almost, I think this is so much easier than actually using any of my templates. So it's like, why do I even have those templates? All right, then I'm going to cut the tip off. I just try to keep this parallel to that fold line. You know, I'm not too fussy about it. It's an envelope, guys. I'm not going to worry about it. And then you fold your edges in. You put some adhesive. I like to use a decent adhesive for this. I don't want it to come loose in the mail. All right, put some adhesive on the edges. And then fold this right up. And you've got a beautiful envelope. I mean, look at that. It looks store-bought. It looks like it came from a fancy template. And since we did it so the color's on the inside, it looks like it's lined, which is extra fancy, and then we can write on the back of our envelope, which is really great. So another little accent, because I sometimes like to give you a little something something at the end. I like to give you a little what could I do next if I wanted to kind of stretch my stash a little bit or try a different product. This is new to me. I've used jelly pens for a long time. This is the Jelly Roll. I got my package here. I picked this up at the stamp show. This is the Stardust pen, and you got 2 in a package for $3.50, and that's, regular retail, guys. It wasn't some fancy deal. So these are about, what's that, $1.75 each? Is that how that would work? I think so. $1.75 a piece. But they're really nice. Now, if you get a 2-pack, open one and leave this one until this is empty. You don't want to stock up on gel pens. You don't want to open your other gel pen before your first one is done because they do have a shelf life. So what I'm going to do is add some accents to my stamped lines. So see how nice and shimmery and shiny that is. Okay, we'll zoom in. Okay, so if I just go in here and there, add some little sparkly details. It adds quite a bit. It doesn't take up a lot of space. It's not expensive, but I really think it gives a one layer card a little extra punch. You could go over the sentiment. You could, you know, just add some doodly lines. It's completely up to you, but I think it really adds something to your cards. And it's you know, something that any beginner can do very easy. But look at the sparkle. I mean, it's very much similar to a Wink of Stella, except you get a lot more control and it's quite a bit cheaper, and I think these will probably last a little bit longer. The Wink of Stellas are beautiful if you want to do like an all over design, but I mean, I just think these little hints of color are wonderful. And actually I have to say, I've used a really expensive glitter pen, the Copic at Uspica markers, and their fine glitter pen. I prefer this, and this is way cheaper. So I hope you liked today's lesson. I hope you give it a try. I really had fun bringing you this lesson today, and I do encourage you to check out artneco.com. They have wonderful products. They are wonderful friends of the stamping community, and I think you will find everything your heart desires there, especially if you like Asian themed rubber stamps and accessories. It's just fantastic. So thank you. I do thank them for their support, and I thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video today, please give me a thumbs up. That really helps me a lot. Leave a comment. If you have any questions, let me know. That whole envelope little tutorial there, I did that because somebody asked me where do I get my envelopes? How do I make envelopes? And it was a beginner question. So the only way I'm going to know what you guys want to learn is if you leave a comment and let me know. So thanks again. Please share this with your friends on Pinterest or Twitter, Tumblr, Flickr. I don't know. Where do you share things? Where do you like to share things? I do appreciate it. And until next time, happy crafting.